Right then, fans, Formula One fans, football fans, whatever fans you are, welcome to the channel, a live stream, first one of the week, probably only one of the week. We are finally moving though. We're getting towards testing. It's so close, I can almost taste it. Just a couple of weeks away now, we'll be able to have a look at the cars in action in Bahrain when they take to. I think it's actually the first test, isn't it? First test in Bahrain. I think the second test is Barcelona. Could be wrong, could be the other way around, something like that. But today's stream, as per the title, today is the day Red Bull launched their car, but it wasn't without controversy. It has to be said, it wasn't without controversy. There was obviously the news. So it says news. It wasn't news, but it certainly been brought to more people's attention regarding some radio messages between Michael Masi and Race Bull's race engineer. And it's caused a bit of a stir. And it's caused a bit of a stir, and we'll go into that in a minute. But I think one thing that's probably will be in terms of it's the final nail in the coffin from Michael Masi. So there's a couple of things we're looking at today. First, we're going to look at this this radio message and what's the backlash, if you like, is from it. I'm also going to show a piece by Martin Brundle, who up until recently had been more inclined to side not with Michael Masi, but say, look, he needs some help, he needs some extra pair of hands there, and so on and so forth. And now his message, literally his words are, his position is untenable. And I think one of the things that this proves beyond any doubt now is the legitimacy of Max Verstappen as a Formula One world champion, as 2021 Formula World champion. I think many people will now see him probably as illegitimate in terms of being a world champion. Now, let's get onto that first. We're also going to look at Red Bull's car. Like I said, we'll go into that. And also some good news to finish off with. Lando Norris has signed a new contract with McLaren, which is good news. I think it's good news for Formula One. I think it's excellent news for McLaren, and I think it's really good for Lando Norris, obviously, as well, most importantly. Right, let's get on. So I'm going to bring up my screen, and we'll go for the first sort of article on that. And there you have it, Formula One, FIA aware. So that was the other thing. The FIA are now aware of this new Michael Masi title decider message. We won't go through the entire article, but as we can see here, those lapped cars. This is Red Bull's race engineer. Those lapped cars, you don't need to let them go right the way around right around and catch up with the back of the pack. You only need to let them go, and then we've got a motor race on our hands. Masi replies, understood. After the race, Mercedes team Toto Wolff gets on the radio and tells Masi that he has done it. That what he's done is not right. Masi replies, Toto, it's called motor racing, okay, or motor race, okay. And so this is quite damning for Michael Masi, particularly. I mean, we knew this part. We had suspected, but I think this confirms it. That Michael Masi had. You could argue it's a form of collusion. You could argue, you can make that legitimate argument that this is a form of collusion. And it's not good. It's not a good sight for Formula One, as per several people who have mentioned this exact thing. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. So it's not a pretty sight. It's not. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the FIA say about it. So the FIA report, we were expecting it by now, but now I think they were saying possibly the 14th, 13th or 14th of February. It's the 9th day, so the 13th would be on Sunday, so probably the 14th Monday. That is what's been touted as the 14th for a potential release date for this. So we're expecting what I'm expecting to see. I'm expecting a report to say that Michael Masi did not follow the protocols. I'm expecting a report that says that Michael Masi was highly influenced by members of the various teams. Not just talking about Red Bull, talking about Mercedes as well, and amongst other teams. They weren't the only teams that had access to or had a direct communication link with Michael Masi. Every team did. And I think there's going to come out on there that they'll say that Michael Masi had one team there, and yabba, 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 and he's made a quick decision. That's what I'm expecting, but that's not going to excuse what's happened. The question, I guess, what people will be asking is how does this relate to Red Bull? I don't know. I'm not saying they're going to come out and condemn Red Bull, but at some point, I think Red Bull are going to have to come out, hold their hands up, and say, you know what? If Michael Masi followed protocol, Max Verstappen would not be world champion, because those are the facts, and I think that essentially is what this report will essentially. That will be the summary of the report. That a series of errors were made, or a series of misinterpretations were made by the race director, resulting in the race finishing in a conclusion in the manner it did. And that was the only conclusion, by the way, which would have allowed Verstappen to finish world champion. So any other way of finishing it would have meant Verstappen would not have been world champion, and that is why he essentially will be known as an illegitimate 2021 world champion. And like I said, I think for me, I would respect Red Bull more if they come out and said, you know what, if Michael Masi follows the rules, we're not world champions, because those are the facts. Those are the facts. Right, let's have a little look at what Martin Brundle had said in his piece. So this is from the Daily Express, but Martin Brundle did do a piece on Sky regarding this. Martin Brundle was given a furious response after hearing the leaked audio between Abu Dhabi Grand Prix race director and Michael Masi and Red Bull sporting director Jonathan Wheatley. So I thought it was race engineer, sporting director. The interaction occurred last month, just moments before Masi allowed 5 lapped cars, which had come between title rivals Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen to overtake and move out of the way during the final race of the 2021 calendar. Masi's decision was widely condemned, and it provided. My reading today, I can't, obviously. It's late in the day. It's 9:45 here. Masi's decision was widely condemned, and it proved pivotal as Verstappen ultimately stormed to victory in the desert, and he appeared out of the contest. And Red Bull driver's triumph meant he won his first F1, his maiden F1 title, and Hamilton was denied a record 8th championship. The audio of Masi speaking to Whitley was made available by F1 in December, but it was widely shared on Wednesdays ahead of the Red Bull's new car launch. That's not a coincidence, by the way. Not a coincidence. And former F1 driver Brundle, who now works for Sky Sports, has admitted the audio is really uncomfortable, and that the events which led to Verstappen's victory were hugely unacceptable. Now, how can you say something is uncomfortable and that what has happened is unacceptable, and still then claim that the world champion is a legitimate world champion? You can't. It's not possible. You can't say the Earth's round and the Earth's flat at the same time. It's not. It's not possible. It's not new news, and also I think you have to understand that it's not necessarily telling Michael Masi something he didn't already know. Brundle said. I don't think that's the point, though. Really, let's not assume it's giving Masi information he didn't already know in terms of what he could and couldn't do in terms of the lap pack. Of course, it's really uncomfortable, and a lot of people are unhappy. Hamilton fans, Mercedes fans, and you didn't have to be a Lewis Hamilton fan to think forever he should be an 8-time world champion. That, I think, is the strongest words to say that, look, everyone who's not a Red Bull fan will look and say Hamilton was 8-time world champion with a lap to go. That the actions on that last lap, created by Michael Masi, artificially created by Michael Masi, is what's made Verstappen a world champion. And the reason why, and I guess this is the thing, and this will come up in this, why Brundle is now saying that Michael Masi's position is untenable. Because for me, the really crucial regulation that wasn't carried out was for the safety car should have come in at the end of the following lap, i.e., would have then come out in the lap of which, there wouldn't have been enough laps racing, basically. But we also know that underwritten rules and meetings, which shouldn't supersede anything, well, let's not try to have a race finish behind a safety car. Now, trying not to have a car or to have a race finish behind a safety car is something we all want. But if there's an incident 2 or 3 laps from the end, you can't do anything about it. You can't not finish the race. So I understand the whole, we want to see races finish outside of a safety car. But if it's not possible, it's not possible. Well, I would rather see the rules followed in terms of that, make it happen. I think in reality, that in hindsight, what they could have done was red flagged with 3 laps to go. And they could have had a standing start and all again, and everyone would have been fresh tyres. It would have been a fair race down to that for the last 3 laps. Once that was not possible because Michael Masi was too busy jerking off, I don't know what he was doing. He missed that window. He missed that opportunity. And what it was is Michael Masi is basically what he's done there. He's not just tried to get the race going. It's a case of I'm so prepared not to have a race finish under a safety car for any condition whatsoever. I'm prepared to break the rules and hand race wins and world championships to another driver just so they can have one lap of racing. It's not what the purpose is. He's misinterpreted. And in the end, I think what this comes down to, I think Michael Masi, there are reports that internally that he's arrogant, that he's got a very large ego, that he sort of thinks that he can sort of struggle along and he's the big sort of man and he controls the Formula One and so on and so forth. And there has been leaks regarding his personality. Now, I can't comment because I don't know the man personally. However, those are the actions of someone who believes they can do what they want. And that's what we saw. Hugely unacceptable. I met so many fans that were new to Formula One last year in particularly, and fans in general. They were hugely upset by what happened. And this isn't about whether you like Hamilton. I don't like Lewis Hamilton. I think he's an arrogant tosser, personally. But I cannot fault him as a racing driver. He is he's a 7-time world champion. He's a Formula One legend. He's a Formula One legend, and he's an excellent racer, and we cannot take that away from him. Doesn't mean you need to like him as a person, though. We cannot, and we know it's going to change, have teams getting at the referee while he's trying to make critical decisions with cars on the track and marshals and breakdown vehicles. The car was on fire at certain times. He's trying to manage that, and he's getting lobbied left, right, and centre. You can imagine that the football ground or rugby ground is completely unacceptable, and that would change. It's not pretty for Formula One at all. But I think this audio today changes the really uncomfortable narrative of what happened. It doesn't actually have it in there. But what Martin Brundle actually said was when asked about whether or not the position was to Sky Sports in the interview with Sky Sports, he was asked about whether the position was untenable, whether Masi could carry on, and Brundle's position was his position's untenable, and he said the reason why is because if Lewis Hamilton ever got a penalty in the season, it's going to come back on our ways against Hamilton. If Verstappen ever didn't get a penalty in the season, it's he's been lenient with Verstappen. If Hamilton doesn't get a penalty, it's when he perhaps should have. It would be a case of he's trying to right a wrong. If Verstappen got a penalty when he shouldn't have, it would be he's trying to right a wrong, and so on. And there's always going to be every decision he makes, there'll be question regarding the motive of it. And I think that's key, though. I think that is why his position's untenable. And not just from that, but other teams as well. Don't forget, those two weren't the only 2 drivers affected by what Masi did. You had drivers further back. Why was Sainz? We talk about Verstappen being a run-up or being allowed to run against Hamilton. Why was Sainz not allowed to run up against Verstappen? Because they didn't move the lap car so Sainz can have a legitimate run up the inside of Verstappen, which again could have affected the outcome of the race. What happened if Sainz comes up the inside and Verstappen's trying to get up to a start, and Verstappen therefore is more in the defence, trying to keep his second place rather than there's all certain things that can happen, but he didn't remove all the safety cars, all the lap cars, he didn't remove those ones, so he's denied other drivers the opportunity for a race. So he hasn't given a one lap race at all, apart from the two drivers at the front. That is it. Those are the only two cars who had a legitimate race at the end. Obviously, it was an unfair race because one had a brand spanking new set of tyres and the other one didn't. But you see what I'm going here. It wasn't a one lap race because other cars that were able to challenge could have or should have been able to have as much right to challenge their car in front of them as Verstappen weren't given that same opportunity. And that is why his position is untenable. I mean, I could go on all night. I won't. I won't. Right, now, Hamilton. Where is Hamilton? The Hamilton look. Where is Hamilton look? Let's bring you up the screen here. And Lewis Hamilton back at Mercedes factory for 2022 season. He's not yet confirmed that he's racing. But Lewis Hamilton's been seen in Mercedes factory this week as team builds for the new Formula 1 season. This is an article from yesterday, the 8th of February. Drink that. Hamilton's participation this year remains in some doubt following controversial end to the 2021 campaign. We know they are waiting on the report. I won't go into the entire article, but just so we're aware there, really, that Hamilton has made an appearance. I believe he did actually make an appearance on social media recently as well. So what we now know in terms of Hamilton is that he's still not made his mind up on returning. There are rumours that Hamilton isn't overly convinced by Mercedes 2022 car, and that actually that the car may not be able to compete for race or for championship wins, and that could be key in whether Hamilton decides to race this year or not. Now, that is speculative at this stage, but certainly if Hamilton didn't feel like the car was going to be optimal in terms of the fastest car on the track or one of them, it would be difficult to race on that basis, I would guess. We'll have to wait and see on that. We won't really know a great deal. We won't know a great deal to the first race of the season, but certainly in terms of the car's reliability and speed, we won't know more really until testing. But it's something to keep an eye on. But anyway, Hamilton has been back to the Mercedes factory, but there's no news yet on whether or not he is going to race this season or not. In terms of this timeline with his report, Zach Brown and McLaren said that he was frustrated by the timeline because I think we're going to see the report fairly soon. But the recommendations of that report, and they're going to make some changes to the rules. What this report is going to do, it's going to recommend some changes to the rules going forward. The question is what those changes are going to be. But, and this is where Zach Brown is frustrated, is we won't know the changes to the rules until the first race of the season. And I can understand that because, hang on a minute, if you're going to change the rules, we need to be gearing up and learning these rules and knowing these rules and so on and so forth. And you're going to tell us basically as we're on the start line, oh, by the way, now you're ready to go. Here are the new rules. I can understand from that perspective. I think they should be out sooner. I think they should be out by probably second testing, in my opinion. In my personal opinion, it doesn't look like it, but they might change. That may change, but in my opinion, it would make sense to have the new rules out by them or written in by them. Right, Red Bull's new car launch. Let's have a quick look at that. And it is so I've got an article here from Sky Sports. And this is the new car, Red Bull's new car, the RB18. Obviously, RB17 was the Formula 1 title winner. controversial, but a title winner nonetheless. And there's a few things that I've noticed on here. Firstly, the front wing looks more like an arrow. It's a lot more. The nose comes out a little bit further, and the wing's got more of an angle to it, as opposed to last year's car where the wing is more flat across the front wing. So more angle. The side pods. If I can just bring my mouse here, these side pods here more rounded, a little bit rounded there, as opposed to last year's car where they were sort of more square, if you like. So that's also an interesting thing. The back of the rear wing, as you can see, that's definitely a different rear wing. And from this picture, there's not a great deal. I mean, you can argue there are. Let's have a look. If I can get. No, I did have a picture here. Let me see if I can compare the two. So we've got this one. Let me see if I can bring that up for you guys. So we want to go to stop sharing ads. We need to share screen, window, that one, share. Okay, so this is last year's car, and this is this year's car. So, and we can see there, you can see the front wing there. It's got a little bit of an angle at the front, but the nose actually stops short of the front wing, the end of the front of the front wing. Whereas this car here, you can see the front wing actually moves beyond the wings itself, and the wings really don't sit. They sit either side of the front of the nose, as opposed to underneath it. And if we go back to last year's car, there we go, sit sort of underneath it, if you like. Whereas they're more, and as you can see, the angle. Plus, also look at the side pods. These ones are sort of level, they're rectangular. This is 2020. Sorry, this is the 2020 car, by the way. But the regulations for 2020 and 2021 were virtually the same. And then if you can see here, look at they're much shorter, they're higher, and they're higher and they're shorter. And then, like I said, with the side pods, we got these sort of, they're more square, and they've actually got a little bit. You can see the difference between the two, far more rounded. And again, if we can have a look at the rear wing, you just see it's a bit more sort of square looking, isn't it? The rear wing, it's more rounded off. The rear wing this time. The wheels are bigger wheels, as we know. They knew they were going to be more high profile, shall I say? So yeah. So that is the new car for Red Bull, which is interesting. Obviously new sponsor as well, Oracle. We don't know how the performance is going to be. The thing is, because it's all new cars and new regulations, so on, we just don't know. You know, but bear in mind, remember the year Red Bull last won, not obviously the one just gone, but previously, when McLaren were the sort of main contenders to Red Bull. And then the rules changed. Mercedes shot up from about third or fourth best team to the top team because of the engine, because of the hybrid engine era, and their engine being so superior to everyone else's. And the reality is when you get a new thing like this, everyone is starting on a level playing field. However, and this is where the difference is made, it's the money. And when I say the money and how the money changes things, it's hours in wind tunnels. That is where you learn your key aerodynamics in Formula One. Now, spending time in a wind tunnel costs money. It costs a lot of money. And the richer the team, the wealthier team, the more money they've got, the more wind tunnel time they can have. The more wind tunnel time you can have, the more you can understand the aerodynamics of your car and so on. Now, you could, for example, a front wing, you may spend an hour or two studying the aerodynamics of the front wing of a car. But the minute, and I'm just going to bring this back up again, but the minute, let's bring this back up 1 second. There we go. The minute as soon as once you're spending that time in a wind tunnel, it's you're if you're spending 2 hours in there as opposed to 10 hours in there, well, in 10 hours you can learn a lot more than what you can in 2 hours, obviously. And that is where costs come into it. And that is why teams with bigger budgets tend to create the best cars, because it's not because person A is smarter than person B. They probably both went to very good top universities and so on. It's because one is able to learn more than the other, because they can spend more time learning about a particular thing, if that makes sense. So that is worth bearing in mind with these things. So even though it's going to be a level playing field in terms of the new rules, it's still a case of some teams have spent more money and therefore time in the wind tunnels researching and knowing more about the car. So, like I said, if you've got a front wing and you're trying to learn about that front wing, well, if things aren't going that well with it, you want to change or want to upgrade that front wing, that means spending time in the wind tunnel, but that could cost you money. So you're on a budget. You know what? We'll leave the front wing as it is. Let's focus on the rear wing. Let's focus on the side pods. Let's focus on the boards, barge board, etc. Whereas the larger team can go, yeah, we'll do a front wing, and they'll do a front wing, and they'll do another front wing before they've even moved to the side pods, and in fact they'll be doing them consecutively and so on. So that's where the money comes into it. Purely, it's not that front wing doesn't cost more money to make than a Haas front wing, but it costs more money to get it aerodynamically sound because it spends money because you have to spend time in the wind tunnel. Right, let's move on to a positive story, a really positive story, in fact, and that is, forget Formula1.com, and I'll share my screen with this. Lando Norris has signed a new contract extension, multi-year, thought to be until 2025. Lando has been awarded for his impressive growth. Formula One driver's strong start to 2021 campaign with a fresh multi-year contract to extend his stay at McLaren for 2022 and beyond. And that is really good news. I think it's good news for British motor racing fans. And there's no doubt Lando Norris is a very bright youngster. Although he doesn't feel that young. He's 21 years old. But you feel like he's quite mature, isn't he, for his age in that respect? So I hope it's not a vape there, Lando. But the Briton has been part of the McLaren family since 2017. Scored the second podium of his career in Imola earlier this year to sit fourth in the drive standings and one of 9 successive points finishes. This was obviously, I think this was a bit earlier, this particular article. But yes, point is, Lando Norris has signed a new contract. He's going to be at McLaren to at least 2025. Good news for Formula One, in my opinion. I think we should all be pleased with that. Particularly McLaren, who we've learnt recently had darker days during COVID than we were initially aware of. So that is good news for that. And that's a good positive thing to finish on. So anyway, that is me done for this stream. Still waiting. We'll keep an eye out for this review, when this review is going to be taking place. I will, of course, stream them. And then I'll be doing streams for the testing, which is nearly here. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I might just wee myself waiting. But yeah, anyway, I hope you have enjoyed the video. I hope you all are keeping safe. And I will see you all again soon.